Well, we certainly came to make a change. And y'all, the next few days, what an amazing opportunity we have to do that together. Thank you so much. Love as usual. Perhaps my very favorite part is all of you in the chat saying where you're coming in from. I'm loving seeing a few extra Minnesota women in the house tonight here for your Lieutenant Governor. And as always, seeing everyone come in from North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, Florida, all the Arizona. I'm seeing all the places. I mean, all these votes count. We're going to make sure every vote counts. But y'all are taking the time to be with us tonight because, well, you want to hear from one of the most badass women in the land. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. And also because you want to get shit done. And you know that sometimes it can feel a little bit hard to step out of your comfort zone and do the work, but it feels a little bit easier and even fun if we do it together. I think I forgot to introduce myself. If you don't know me by now, Katie Paris, the founder of Red Wine and Blue, and I'm in my favorite place, which is with all of you here tonight. And I'm super excited to be welcoming. It's just someone I've been so excited to meet Peggy Flanagan, you guys, for a while now. So I'm going to try to stay cool. But here we go. All right. So introducing Minnesota Lieutenant Governor, the woman who trained the next vice president of the United States really to like organize. So we're going to learn more about that. So welcome, Peggy Flanagan.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you and just really excited for this conversation.
Okay, so first of all, you probably have done one bazillion events today, just today. We know you're working so hard out there, and for that we are so grateful. But I just got to start with the question of just like, how are you doing? And like, it's okay. It's okay. We always say here too, like, it's okay to feel more than one thing at once. We can feel anxious and overwhelmed and super pumped and optimistic and a little worried, all these things all at the same time. How are you doing?
For sure. I'm going to be honest. I am a little tired. And that is just because I've been in Kansas and Nevada and Arizona and Montana. And just it's been this sort of East Coast, West Coast tour, but for all good things, right? Pumping people up and making sure that we are turning out the vote all across the country. So like that is good work and I love it. You know, I do feel hopeful. I watched that speech last night from Kamala Harris. And well, first I read it because I was on a plane while she was delivering it. And so I read through the remarks and I'm crying. And then I watched it. There's something happening and everybody just needs to get off the roller coaster and just do the work. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. Like it really is in our hands to be able to determine what the future looks like. And it's things that, you know, I know that you are encouraging people to do, but it's really just like talking to people in your life, texting folks, calling people, knocking on doors, and just talking about why you care about this election. And that's such a deep connection to all of our personal stories. And that's the fuel to get through the next 6 days, 5 days, right?
Yes. So one of our mantras here is just ignore the pundits, ignore the polls. All of them are just trying to figure out what you think anyway. These women, you know, who are in all these key states. It's like, why listen to them? They're just trying to figure out what you already know. So like, lean into what you know, what you think, and share that with everyone in your life. Exactly as what you say. So y'all take that advice, get off that roller coaster every second that you're reading, you know, something from the latest CNN or New York Times poll or anything like that. They do not know what the electorate ultimately is going to look like any more than anyone else. It's, you know, all these algorithms and, you know, who knows. And so the one thing we can control is what we do in the next 5 days. So that's, which is a pretty great opportunity. Okay. So I want to talk to you about what we know about you is that you started as a community organizer, and over your career, you have helped train other organizers, activists, candidates. And so the truth is that this Zoom is full of women who are really excited to be learning, and trying new things and stepping out of those comfort zones and organizing, for the first time, becoming involved maybe in politics in new ways than they ever have before. And so while many of us are new to organizing, we've always been passionate, about our families and our communities. And I just would love to hear from you, who's, so wise about these things. What advice do you have? What advice do you have for us?
Sure. Well, first of all, I bet you already are an organizer, even if you don't think that you're an organizer, because so much of the work that we do is really, I think good organizing is good visiting, and checking in with people and seeing how they're doing, and then having a conversation, right, that goes from there. I think at the heart of everything that we do, it's really about personal stories. And as a recovering legislator, I can tell you, right, that folks will come into, my office and they would bring, all these like facts, figures, and statistics, and that matters. But the thing that really stuck with me would be individual stories from people about how they're impacted, and why it matters to them. And so your story, I think, is the most important tool in your toolbox. And I'm going to tell you a story, if that's okay, just about what is fueling my fire right now.
Yeah, please.
So in the summer of 2022, when we got the decision that came down, the Dobbs decision, and lost our freedoms, we were literally, Governor Walz and I were filming a campaign commercial in that moment. And I had like this like full face of like really like filming makeup on, right? Like hair's all done. And I'm like, I can't cry, right? Everything will run. And then I was like, they're coming, those tears are coming. And I did the first thing that I knew to do in that moment, which was to call my mom. And my mom, said exactly what she needed to say to me in that moment, which was, she said, "Peggy, I've been preparing you your whole life for this moment." And it was kind of a like buck up kid, but also like, what you need to do. And in that moment, right, I knew, I was like, I understand the assignment, right, which is to just continue to work as hard as we could to make sure that we could win this election. And I will tell you, after we won, the very first bill that was introduced into the legislature was to protect access to reproductive care in Minnesota. And then it was the very first bill just 3 weeks later that was signed into law by Governor Walz. And it was signed into law. I was by his side when Walz was by his side, and my daughter was also by his side because that was important to me. And he lost my mom shortly after the election. She knew she'd cast her vote for us. She knew that we had won. And she knew that we were going to do the things that we said we were going to do. And so when I think about this moment, and she said, "I've prepared you your whole life for this moment," it's been just such an important reminder to me that my job is also to prepare my daughter for the moments where she will need to fight for her rights and the rights of other people around her. And like, organizing is just this continual work of making sure that we show up for each other and that we care for each other in public. So I would just say, like, find those things, the same thing that like makes you sit up straight in the middle of the night, right? Or makes it hard to fall asleep, oftentimes is like the thing that also fuels your fire to do this work. And so I think about, all the people who have loved me into existence in this moment, and then share that story of my mom and share that story of my daughter. And I know that you all have incredible stories that you can share too. And I think those are the things that really break these conversations wide open, where people can take some risks because you've been a little vulnerable with them and a little more personal. And then that is the thing. So if that's on the door, on the phone, or as you are reaching out maybe to a friend who lives in a swing state, or maybe you are in a swing state. I saw a lot of our Pennsylvania friends, right, who showed up. that you have these tools in your toolbox already. It's just talking about, why you care, and why you're doing the work. And you don't have to know all the details of these policy platforms, but really know, what's on your heart and what's in your gut, and share that with other people.
Well, Peggy, I am so sorry for your loss, and I am so grateful that your mom prepared you for this. That was some of the best advice I've ever heard in terms of organizing and understanding, like how we just, by virtue of our own lives, are so well equipped, if we're willing to share and lean in and, with those personal stories. Thank you. Okay, so we're pretty excited to hear a little bit of the behind the scenes, on Tim Walz here. I feel like it's pretty cool to hear from, you're his lieutenant governor, and then, he's running to be vice president. So I feel like you kind of know what it's, that in that position. And so I can only imagine what it's been like to watch him, called up to this task. And, so we have heard that you are one of the people who basically coached, Tim Walz in terms of community organizing. Can you share with us some of the behind the scenes there, like how you coached the coach?
Well, I adore Tim Walz, and it has been really fun to see the rest of the country learn all about my favorite coworker. As he has, I think you can tell he has a lot of fun campaigning and doing his work, and really is joyful about so much of it. So I was a newly elected school board member in Minneapolis. I was 25, and I was working at an organization called Wellstone Action that grew out of the memory of the late great Senator Paul Wellstone of Minnesota. And we had a training program called Camp Wellstone. So folks who wanted to work on campaigns or run for office could come, and I was one of the trainers. And so Tim Walz walks in, and he's wearing like a white t-shirt and jeans and tennis shoes. And he was like, "I'm Tim Walz, and I want to run for Congress in the 1st congressional district." And we were like, "As a Democrat?" And he was like, "Yeah." Nice. Like, "Okay, good luck. Come on in." Right. And so, in that, moment when I first met him, I was like, "Who's this guy?" And then by the end of the training, I was like, "Who is this guy?" Because I watched like everything that we know, that now that so many Americans know. He is a teacher. He is a veteran. He is a coach, and really just connects so much with people. And I think one of the best parts, like a good teacher is also a good learner. And that's something that I have watched Tim Walz do through, the 20 years that we have been friends. Meeting with people that may have a different life experience than he did, really stepping outside of his comfort zone. And frankly, one of my favorite things about him is that he is not intimidated to partner with effective women leaders. And I have also watched him do this now, right? Of course, with our Vice President, Kamala Harris. He really lets women lead. And I think it's one of my favorite things about him. But yeah, coaching the coach. So it was a fun weekend, right? To watch him grow. But then I was like, I'm going to go knock on doors in Mankato, a community where I didn't live, because I was like, I really liked Tim Walz, and I think he needs to be in Congress. And so we've been friends ever since. But that like big dad energy is so real. And I'm going to tell you a story, which I have permission to share, which is that the day after we won the 2018 gubernatorial election, my daughter came home with head lice. And so for many of you on this call, I'm sure you know the horror of when that happens. And I did what anyone would do. I called the governor-elect, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" And he said, and I think I probably was crying. And he was like, "Listen, you're going to go to Target, and when you get there, you're going to FaceTime me." And so I FaceTimed him in the aisle with all of the various, shampoos. And he had me hold up the phone and told me like which one to buy. And he's like, "Okay, and once you get home, you're going to FaceTime me again. I'm going to walk you through the whole thing." And that is exactly what I did, right? And he was amazing. And so this like version of Tim Walz, right, that people are seeing, like, that's just Tim Walz. That is
Yeah.
who he is. Like, my car was making a funny noise. He was like, hold up the phone, you know, next to the engine. I'll tell you what part to go get at Napa, right? Like, he's like, you know, the governor, but also everyone's dad, right? So it's just, it is
Totally.
so real. But yeah, the best, I've watched him meet people on their very worst days and like hold their grief with such care and with such tenderness. And also, you know, he challenges me to do new things. Like I took up pheasant hunting. I would have never done that before without working with Tim Walz. And it's just truly one of the best men I know. And I'm so excited that everyone is learning so much more about him because he is my buddy. And that is what has been just like so bizarre. Right at the convention, I'm standing there watching him give his speech. There's all these like cameras in my face. And I was like, all right, well, everyone on CNN is just going to see me ugly cry because I'm so proud of my buddy who's up there giving the speech of his life. But it really is what you see is what you get. And I think we're so lucky to have him. And my hope is that he will be getting a new job soon.
Yes, I think all of us on that call are working very, very hard for that. And, you know, I think I'm one of like most Americans. Well, I feel like I was in on it just because I started like seeing some of these videos that were gaining a little traction online, maybe a few weeks before VP Harris chose Tim. And I was becoming like this super fan. You know, I was like, how did I not know about this guy? He's so real, you know, and it's just, it feels like in this era where everything can feel so prepackaged, right? You know, like talking points and everything else. Like, I just imagine like Tim Walz getting some talking points and being like, what is this? Like, I don't, you know, he's just like here to be himself. And I love that and hope it never ever changes. That's what we need so badly. And I think that's what people are hungry for. Okay, so I want, you're good.
I've got my Tim Walz head.
Yes, here. Hi, Tim. Way to bring the joy.
So like when I miss him because he's on the road and I've got FOMO, I'm like, I just have, you know, this guy right here all the time.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so I want to ask you about this. You are the highest ranked elected Native American in the United States.
Native American woman.
The first. Yeah. Native American woman. You would become the first Native American woman governor if Tim Walz, of course, becomes our vice president, as we all know he will. You've been really proudly vocal about your heritage and such a champion for many tribal nations in Minnesota. So can you just talk about what it means in that context to have the chance to lead one of our great states?
Well, you know, I think representation matters tremendously, and it's not enough, right? We need to make sure that we have actions behind that. And so in 2018, it was a really incredible year for Native women. So Deb Haaland was elected to Congress, who now is the Secretary of the Interior. Native woman, Native person to serve in the cabinet. And Sharice Davids was also elected from Kansas. And then we had many Native women who were elected to legislatures all across the country. And I was very fortunate to be elected as well. And so I think a lot of folks were like, oh, this is a moment, right, for Native women in leadership. And I think for me, I think about it really as a movement where Native women have been leading since time immemorial. It is simply the rest of society that is catching up to us. And so I've been so honored to be able to do this work in partnership with Governor Walz. And he truly has been an incredible ally to Native people. Like, I don't think this administration potentially could be the most impactful we have ever seen. And the work we've been able to do together is really powerful. And here's what I also know, that if I am not the first Native American woman governor in this country, she is shortly on her way. And we have built teams and infrastructure, and we have leaders all around us. And so she is on her way. Fingers crossed it is me, because that means all of us, right, will have a better election.
That means we are all in a very good position. Our country, our democracy is in a
Right.
much better shape than the
Yes.
alternative.
Yes.
Okay, so
But,
and we have something that's been super interesting and exciting to learn about too is, I mean, you and Governor Walz really represent to me like that elections matter. You know, that you all and other leaders, of course, throughout state government in Minnesota have taken seriously, you know, like your leadership and what that means, and giving the people what they want, you know, in terms of helping people with their everyday lives. So we've all heard about the free school lunches. Love that. Huge fan. Yes, please, everywhere. What policy do you wish got more attention that you all have worked on that we may not have heard about?
well, free lunches was absolutely right up there, and I'm glad you brought it up. As a kid who grew up with a different colored lunch ticket, it is a game changer.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I am really proud of from this last legislative session was our child tax credit, that will lower child poverty by a third in our state. And I think truly was modeled after the work that the Biden-Harris administration did. And I'm, sad that that was not continued. And I know that once Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are elected, that will be something that they will work to get done. But it is truly, I think, makes such a difference for families. I don't know about you, but my kiddo outgrows shoes like every few months, where you think about a car repair
Every few
or
days, it feels like.
yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, or some folks who might have pushed back on it. I was like, you're just telling on yourself that you have no idea what it means to try to have $40 last you for the next week and a half, right? And that there are so many of our families who are struggling. And if we can do anything, right, to help ease that burden and just make it easier for families, we're going to do it. So that's something that I'm tremendously proud of and excited, because that will be ongoing into the future in Minnesota. And we know that when we increase family income, we improve child outcomes. It is that simple. And those are things that folks should be able to get behind.
They really should. Like, why is this controversial? Child tax credit at the federal level, we know cut child poverty in half, and yet they didn't renew it. Like, shouldn't this be just like the no-brainer number one things we do? That's really cool. I did not know about that in Minnesota. And also another thing that I wish we would do in every state. So, Lieutenant Governor, in closing, can you tell us why it's so important for everyone to not just be here for the talk, as amazing as it was, but to stay and join one of these two after parties and get on Rally to take action tonight?
Yes. So first of all, you do not want to wake up the day after the election and be like, oh man, if I would have just done that one more thing. We've got to literally just like power through and get it all done. And you literally have a tool in your toolbox where you can connect with the people in your life, and you should use it. This is go time. And I really, every time I do also have people in my life who are like, oh, I'm super freaked out. What do I do? I'm like, did you early vote? Oh no. I'm like, do that first, then get back to me. How did that feel? They're like, that felt great. I was like, awesome. Are you still worried? Now you're going to go and you're going to volunteer and you're going to knock doors. Now you're going to get on the phones, right? Now you're going to text like 3 people who, maybe haven't turned out to vote yet. So there is a way for us right now is the most important time for you to do everything that you can. And women are so powerful, right? And I will just tell you, and I will leave you with the words of my mom, Pat Flanagan. You are prepared for this moment. Living as a woman in this moment, all of the things that you have heard from those guys, all of the things that you have lived, all of the things that you have experienced, all of the people who have loved you into this moment, you have got this. And I have got you, and Katie has got you, and this entire community, we've got each other. And so all of that ridiculous rhetoric that we hear, the polls, whatever, women are powerful, and we will be the ones who, yet again, save our communities, save our country, and decide what our country will look like into the future. So go fight, win. We're going to do this.
You're amazing. God bless Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. We have got to get you back here once you're governor, and just like to keep this inspiration train rolling. I can see why Coach Walz was set up just right on that path. I'm so glad he met you way back then, and that you all have been inspiring each other ever since. I'm glad you're his buddy. I'm glad that you're his. And just thank you so much for joining us tonight.